I wasn't always alone. There was a time when my name, if one could call it that, echoed through command halls and war rooms. K, 9X, the designation stamped into my flank, marked me as property, as weapon, not a creature, not a being. We were bred to obey, enhanced to endure, trained to kill. The battlefield stretched out like a shattered dream, littered with the remnants of metal, bone, and fire. I limped through the ruin, one hind leg dragging, pain lancing to the joint where shrapnel had lodged hours before. Smoke hung in the air like ghosts of the fallen. My ears twitched at the far-off groan of a collapsing skyship, but I kept moving. That's what we were taught, relentless motion, even in agony. The last command had been clear: hold position. We held. My unit pushed forward under heavy fire. I tore through enemy lines, my jaws crushing armor, my claws ripping through synthetic muscle. I didn't feel pain then, only purpose. Then silence. The retreat came not as a warning, but a whisper in the comms, digital and cold. I responded, bloody but alive, limping toward the extraction zone. But the dropships had already lifted, their engines howling above me like vultures. I ran, I barked, no, screamed, but no one looked down. They knew I was alive. They knew I was trying to return. They left me anyway. I stumbled through the ashes of what had once been a forward operating base. The scorched emblem of the Galactic Dominion was half buried in the sand. The wind howled through empty structures, whistling across jagged metal and skeletal walls. I searched for water, for food, for another heartbeat. Nothing. Time stretched. The sun, this cruel, foreign sun, pounded down in waves. My cooling system sputtered, then failed entirely. I crawled into the shadow of a broken mech and lay there, sides heaving. The pain was no longer just physical. It had become a weight behind my eyes, a silence in my thoughts. Purpose drained from me like oil from a torn line. I dreamed in bursts. A handler's voice, stern but familiar. The buzz of training drones. The satisfaction of a mission complete. They had called me good once. Just once. That memory clawed its way to the surface and refused to let go. The days bled together. I fought off scavengers, small, chittering creatures with too many eyes and too little fear. Hunger gnawed at me, but worse was a hollow ache of abandonment. I was made for loyalty, and mine had been discarded like broken kit. One evening, as the twin moons began to rise over the scorched plateau, I heard movement, not the scuttle of vermin or the shriek of carrion birds. This was different, deliberate, heavy. I crouched low, ears flattened, body quivering with the anticipation of attack. My optics adjusted, scanning the path ahead. Nothing. Then I saw it, a silhouette, humanoid, alone. Instinct told me to stay hidden. But instinct was fractured now like everything else. I stepped forward, one paw crunching dry stone. The figure paused. I could smell them now, organic, nervous, but not hostile. I crept closer. When they saw me, they froze. I understood why. I was monstrous, half covered in dried blood, patches of armor hanging by frayed straps, one eye flickering erratically. My teeth bared out of habit, not aggression. But the figure didn't run. Gods, they whispered, taking a step back. You're one of them. They didn't raise a weapon, didn't flee, just watched. I lowered my head, unsure if it was submission or exhaustion. A second figure emerged, younger, a child. They clung to the first leg, eyes wide. What is it? The older one responded, voice low, left over from the war. It shouldn't be alive. Alive. The word stung more than it soothed. I took another step, and the child stepped forward too. The older one tried to hold them back, but they slipped free, small feet crunching gravel. I didn't move. They stopped just short of my muzzle, their eyes locked with mine. No fear, just curiosity. I breathed, slow and shallow, letting them see the rise and fall of my chest, letting them know I could still feel. The child reached out, tentative, fingers trembling, and touched the torn edge of my armor. You're hurt, they whispered. Something shifted then, not in my body, in them, in the older one. I saw it in their face. The calculation, the recognition. Not a threat. Not now. We can't just leave it, the child said. The older one sighed. It's a war dog. It was trained to kill. You know what that means. But it's alone. So was I. They looked at me again, weighing consequences, risks, morality. I didn't speak. I couldn't. But I didn't have to. Everything I had to say was written in the blood on my fur. The way I stood still, the way I hadn't lunged. The older one knelt slowly. If you try anything, I'll put you down. Understand? I blinked once. They reached into a satchel and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. A dried protein slab, hard and stale, but to me, it was life. The child smiled. Can we keep it? Keep, the older one scoffed. It's not a pet. But they didn't say no, and I didn't leave. That night, I lay just beyond their firelight, my ears tuned to their quiet voices, my eyes watching the stars. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if this was rescue or another kind of mission, but I had been seen, and for the first time since the war ended, I didn't feel forgotten. The human settlement was nothing more than a scattered collection of prefab shelters, jury-rigged solar panels, and makeshift fences stitched from scrap and resolve. It clung to the edge of the Badlands like a stubborn weed, surviving where nothing should. And now, so was I. They called it Dust Haven. To me, it was color and noise and scent, so unlike the sterile confines of military hangars or blood-slicked battlefields. Here, smoke from cooking fires mingled with the sweet trace of herbs. Laughter echoed across sun-bleached walls. It confused me. War had no place here. And yet I remained, uncertain of my role in this piece. The child was called Wren. They had hair like dried grass and eyes too large for their face, always wide with wonder or worry. They spoke often into everything, machines, insects, the wind, and now, to me, "You're not scary anymore," they told me one morning, perched on a rusted generator as I lay nearby. "You're sad. That's different." I didn't know what to make of that. My training had not prepared me for this species of honesty. Their guardian, Mara, was a different story. A former scout by the way she moved, always aware, never still. Her eyes, sun-creased and sharp, tracked me with military precision. I understood her suspicion. It was smart, safe, but part of her, buried deep beneath the hardness, was watching for something else. Proof I could be more than a threat. Mara rarely spoke to me directly. Orders, yes. Warnings more often. But words like good or safe remained firmly unspoken. I didn't need them. Her body spoke enough, how she'd angle herself between me and Wren, but let the child approach anyway. She was giving me rope, enough to hang myself if I chose. I didn't. My wounds healed slowly under her care, rough but effective. She cleaned them with brisk, practiced hands, her jaw tight each time I flinched. She never flinched back. We were both used to pain. Days bled into one another. I helped in small ways, carrying supplies, guarding the perimeter at night. I never asked to be included, but they let me be near. That was enough. Then the boy came. Not Wren. Another, older, with dirt under his nails and a rifle slung across his back like it belonged there. He arrived with two others, drifters seeking trade, they claimed. Dust Haven welcomed them with cautious generosity. I stayed back, watching from the shade. That night, as fires crackled and trade goods were shared, I saw the boy eyeing me, not with fear, with calculation. Didn't think they had war dogs this far out, he said to no one in particular. His voice cut through the hum of conversation. What's it doing here? Mara didn't answer immediately. She leaned forward, elbows on knees, watching. Who commands it, he asked. No one, Wren said a little too proudly. It stays because it wants to. The boy laughed. You trust something like that? Those things are built to obey, not choose. I shifted, rising from where I lay. His hand fell to his rifle. Instinct, not threat, but instinct mattered. Easy, Mara warned. To both of us. The boy nodded slowly but didn't look away. Just saying. Things like, that remember what they were made for. I did, every second. But I also remembered Wren's hand, small and warm against my metal-plated jaw. I remembered the first time I chose not to strike, when startled. I remembered Mara watching me sleep near her fire, one hand resting loosely on her knife, but not drawn. I didn't move. The boy left the next morning, but unease lingered like smoke. Trust was a fragile thing, and mine had been newly woven. Now it frayed. Wren found me pacing the perimeter that evening. "You're restless," they said, "like something's coming." They were right. I felt in the wind, in the quiet that settled wrong over Dusthaven. Too still, too soon. That night, I didn't sleep. And when the scream came, raw, tearing through the dark, I was already moving. Wren's shelter was empty. Mar was gone. The center of the settlement burned in a low, dirty fire. I saw shapes in the smoke. Humans, yes, but not the ones who lived here. These moved with purpose, with hunger. Raiders. One had Mara pinned against a wall, her knife not far from reach. Another dragged supplies into a sack. A third turned toward the distant edge of the encampment, toward the place where I had last scented Wren. I didn't think. I launched myself at the nearest attacker, jaws closing on his shoulder with a crunch that silenced his scream. Fire flashed across my flank, a weapon grazing, not piercing. Pain. Good. It meant I was still alive. I moved like I'd been made to, efficient, merciless. The old programming surged beneath my skin, familiar and terrible. They fired, they struck, they screamed. I didn't stop. Mara recovered her knife in the chaos. We fought like pieces of a broken unit. Unpracticed, but aligned. She didn't look at me, but she fought back to back with me as if we'd done it 100 times. When it ended, the dust hung low. Smoke curled into the heavens. I limped through the wreckage toward the far shelter. It was partially collapsed. Beneath the rubble, I found a hand. Small. Still. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then it shifted. Fingers twitched. Wren coughed, weak but alive. I began to dig. Behind me, Mara approached. She was bleeding, bruised, breathing hard. "You saved her," she said quietly. I looked at her, not with pride, not with demand, just presence. She stepped closer, knelt beside me, and placed her hand, slow, deliberate, on my head. "Maybe you're more than a weapon after all." I didn't understand forgiveness, but I understood this. I had chosen them, and they had chosen me. It would not be the last time I fought for them. The morning after the raid brought silence, dense, uneasy. Dusthaven had survived, but it bore new scars. Shelters collapsed. Smoke lingered in the air like a warning no one wanted to read. Yet there was movement, signs of life, repairs, hushed voices, cautious laughter. Even the wounded found reason to stand. Wren sat beside me, their arm bandaged, a bruise darkening along one temple. They didn't speak, just leaned against my shoulder, one hand resting gently on my fur. I allowed it. Their quiet weight steadied me more than orders ever had. Mara watched from a distance, her stance firm but tired. She hadn't spoken much since the attack, but her gaze no longer held suspicion. It held something heavier, expectation. I patrolled more frequently. No one asked me to. I simply did. Instinct, perhaps, or purpose, reborn. It wasn't long before the warning signs returned. Tracks outside the perimeter. Too many, too deliberate. Deep impressions in the dust. Boots, not paws. Scouting paths used only by those who knew where the blind spots were. I brought Mara to the edge of the ridge where the trail ended. Her eyes narrowed as she examined the churned earth. "They're not done," she muttered. "They're testing us." I growled, a low vibration in my chest. She nodded. "We need to prepare." Dusthaven was no fortress. Its people were farmers, scavengers, runaways. Survivors, yes, but untrained for war. Mara worked quickly, organizing shifts, assigning roles. She taught them how to spot ambushes, how to lay simple traps. I helped where I could. When people looked at me now, they no longer flinched. Some even nodded. Wren crafted a makeshift harness for me, patched leather and woven thread. "So you look official," they said with a grin. "Part of the team." I didn't need it, but I wore anyway. The second attack came under the cover of night, swift and brutal. Explosions tore through the western fence. Shadows poured into the settlement, dozens of them, armed and shouting. Screams followed. I charged headfirst into the chaos. A raider lunged at a fleeing elder. I intercepted, slamming into him mid-leap. His blade glanced off my shoulder. I spun, caught his arm in my jaws, and wrenched. He crumpled. All around, Dusthaven fought, not with grace, but with desperation. Mara moved through the firelight like a phantom, blade and bullet singing. Ren had vanished from sight, hidden, I hoped. I lost count of how many I faced. Blood soaked into my fur. Some mine, most not. A flash of movement to my left caught my eye. A raider climbing the central tower, setting charges. He was aiming to end it. I leapt, scaling the scaffold in bounds. He turned, startled, raised his weapon. Too slow. My weight crashed into him. We tumbled. I hit the ground hard, ribs screaming. He didn't get up. Mara reached me moments later. Blood streaked across her face. "We hold the line," she yelled to the others, voice hoarse but commanding. Push them out. And they did. With every strike, every defiant shout, Dusthaven refused to fall. The invaders broke, retreating in fragments, dragging their wounded into the night. I stood at the center of the wreckage, lungs heaving, wounds stinging. Around me, the people gathered. Ren ran to my side, arms flung around my neck despite the blood, despite the mud. "You came back," they whispered. "You didn't leave." I couldn't speak, but I stayed. Later, when the fires had been extinguished and the silence returned, not with dread, but with peace, Mara approached, a wrapped bundle in her arms. "Something for you," she said. She knelt, unwrapped the cloth, and revealed a collar. It was simple, leather hand-stitched, a brass plate riveted to the front. I leaned forward. The plate was etched with a word, not a designation, not a code. "Valor." "Ren named you," Mara said it felt right. I looked at the child, who grinned with that same strange hope they'd carried since the day we met. I lowered my head. Mara fastened it gently around my neck. "You're not a weapon anymore," she said. "You're one of us." I had no words, no way to say what swelled inside me, but I stood taller. I stepped forward, past the edge of the firelight, and let the stars shine down on me unhidden. They had abandoned me. But these humans, these fragile, stubborn, remarkable humans, had not. And now neither would I.